Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Brown, consultant with IEDC. We'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar event, Wish You Were Here, Tourism in a New Age. This event is part of IEDC's series on different topics related to the economic development response to COVID-19. Before we get started, I would like to share a few housekeeping notes. Please note that all attendees will be muted during the webinar. You will have an opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing them into the questions pane in your control panel. You may send in your questions at any time and we'll address them during the question and answer session. Within 48 hours of today's webinar, presentation slides will be posted on Restore Your Economy along with the webinar. And I would now like to introduce Daniela Middleton, Senior Vice President at Development Counselors International. Welcome, Daniela.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. It's an installment in the International Economic Development Council series on how economic developers and their communities are addressing the COVID-19 crisis. For the foreseeable future, IEDC will be hosting these webinars with the intent to share resources, tools, best practices, and the latest updates. Today, we are honored to welcome a group of experts from the tourism industry. Joe D'Alessandro, President and CEO of San Francisco Travel Association, Annie Rimmel, PhD, CDME, President and CEO of Great Lakes Bay Regional Convention and Visitors Bureau in Saginaw, Michigan, and William D. Talbert III, CDME, President and CEO of the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. So we're excited to have you all here for this really important and timely webinar. Quick reminder, I ask all of our participants to type in your questions into the tab on your GoToWebinar dashboard. Anything regarding technology, our representatives from IEDC will be standing by to answer them. And after all the panelists have presented, I'll grab a couple of the questions from the box and we'll do a bit of Q&A. Before we hand it over to the panelists, I want to do a quick few minutes to set the stage of where we are today, June 15th, 2020. And I say that because this has been changing on sometimes a daily basis, but very frequently. Since the beginning of March, the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in a direct revenue loss of $234 billion for the U.S. travel industry. New analysis reveal that while the economy as a whole is in the midst of a recession, the travel industry is actually bordering more of a depression. Overall, travel industry unemployment is at 51%, which is twice the unemployment of the worst year of the Great Depression. Oxford Economics released an analysis in mid-April, and they're actually due to release one in the next few days, an updated version. They've reported that travel industry losses will result in a GDP impact of $1.2 trillion this year, and that the decline in travel alone this year will result in a loss of $80 billion in taxes this year. Inbound arrivals to North America are expected to decline to a total of 40%, which represents about a loss of 59 million visitors compared to that of the previous year. Domestic visitors, arrivals, are forecasted to decline 24% in 2020, and that's a loss of 107 million visitors. Domestic tourism is really, really important to U.S. destinations, as it accounts for an average about 84% of total visitors, and it's going to play a really crucial role in the recovery, which all of our panelists will address today. Guys, there's a lot that we don't know about the future of travel, but we are confident that people will travel again for both leisure and business. Yes, it will look different, it will feel different in the immediate future, and we know that many of our hospitality businesses, attractions, and hotels are going to have to make operational changes, and many have already done so in order to accommodate safety and health measures. This week, there have been a few indicators that point to the fact that we are entering the early stages of recovery within our industry. Adara's Travel Trends Tracker reported that last week, domestic air and hotel bookings for future travel started to recover. So we were at a peak of minus 89% year over year at the first week of April. And at the last week of May, we were only at minus 71%. So some hope there. The daily travel index from Arrivalist measures consumer road trips of 50 miles or more and across the 50 US states. And road travel is continuing to increase. And actually last week it was at its highest level since the week ending of March 7th. Longwood does a traveler sentiment survey, and last week they reported that while most Americans are still not ready to travel or to welcome visitors to their communities, there have been significant shifts in the recent weeks that signaling that there is an increasing readiness among many. Only 46% of travelers now indicate that COVID-19 will greatly impact their decision to travel within the next 6 months. And this is down from at a high of 67% in the beginning of April. Destinations analysts, they track consumer perceptions. This last week, 70% of American travelers have at least one leisure trip tentatively planned for the year. So it's good news. And they also report that 41% of those who typically travel for conventions and conferences say that they would be happy to attend if asked to attend one in the fall. I'm pretty sure a lot of those are folks working at home with children or just working at home in small quarters, and they cannot wait to get on that first business travel and go to that conference. So that's a little bit of the glimmer of hope that we have. With nearly 90% of travel marketers having slashed their budgets due to the pandemic, we know that there are restrained resources, and there are also changing mandates that each of the destination cities and regions are having to accommodate. So we're going to hear from leaders of 3 very different destinations on how they navigated through the crisis so far and how they are planning and implementing recovery efforts in the next couple of months. So we've set the stage for today, and now it's time for you guys to hear who you came to hear from, the panelists. I'm going to read their bios right before each of them speaks. So first, let me introduce Joe D'Alessandro. San Francisco runs through Joe's blood. He is the grandson of Italian immigrants who arrived in San Francisco over 100 years ago. So it's only fitting that Joe now leads an organization that was founded at roughly the same time. Since taking the job as president and CEO in 2006, Joe has driven San Francisco Travel to adopt the San Francisco ethos of community, innovation, and openness as its core business values. The association has embraced a comprehensive digital marketing strategy that makes the most of rapidly evolving technological landscape. It's forged partnerships with and between hotels, venues, and neighboring destinations to maximize both the visitor experience and organizational goals. Among Joe's achievements was the development of the San Francisco Tourism Improvement District, otherwise known as the TBID, which created a unique and sustainable funding structure that has become a national model for tourism promotion. Joe is a leader in the city as well as in the industry. He has lent his knowledge and skills to a number of groups, including the executive committee of the U.S. Travel Association and San Francisco's Super Bowl 50 host committee. In 2014, he was named the most admired CEO by the San Francisco Business Times. Joe lives in San Francisco's North Beach neighborhood. The San Francisco Travel Association is the city's official destination marketing organization, a DMO, promoting San Francisco and the Bay Area to the world as the premier destination for conventions, meetings, events, and leisure travel. In Joe's decade of leadership, this station has become one of the largest member-based DMOs in the country, with employees stationed across the country and the globe. Joe, over to you to take it away.
Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate that. And that was a very long bio. I learned something. Shorten your bio. I think that's always a good idea. But I'm pleased to talk with you guys today. Economic development through tourism kind of runs in my blood. It's been something I've done my entire career in big cities and small towns. And I think at this point right now, it's even more important than ever to work together collectively to rebuild the economy of the United States. And I think tourism, although it was hit the hardest during this COVID crisis, is one of the ones that can help us recover quickly, no matter where we are in this country, no matter what part of the nation, no matter how big or small our community is. So let's go to the next slide, and I'll kind of talk a little bit about where San Francisco was before COVID-19. We hear a lot about San Francisco's economy and, high tech and social media and biotech and all this kind of stuff. But tourism is San Francisco's #1 industry by far. Last year, visitors spent almost $10.5 billion in our economy. It employed over 86,000 San Franciscans. It generated over $800 million in taxes for the city, and these are just taxes for the city to use. So tourism was clearly something that runs deep in San Francisco and has been part of our economic development strategy for as long as the city's been around, and it has been the #1 industry for the last 20 to 30 years. However, all of this is changing dramatically, the impact of travel and tourism to San Francisco today. So let's go to the next one. San Francisco always looked internationally. Of all of our visitor spending, about 64% of it comes from international visitors, which is really important because it meshes really well with our tech industry and everything else that has San Francisco. And before the COVID crisis, we had nonstop flights to Wuhan, China, to give you an example. So when the pandemic started and we saw the first few cases in the United States, we were especially concerned in San Francisco. Some of the first cases in the country were in the Bay Area, and what we think is potentially the first death in the country was in the Bay Area too. So San Francisco took it very seriously, and you can see here the timeline of how we responded to the crises in the early days. We were the first city in the country to declare a state of emergency in February. People thought we were crazy. Why are you doing this? This is not that big of a deal. But it was a very future thinking on the behalf of the mayor and our business community, saying we have to make sure we're taking everything in a place because we're quite vulnerable with this disease because of our dense population. We're the second most densely populated city in the country next to New York, and our ties with China. On March 17th, we were the first place in the country to do a shelter in place affecting 7 million of our residents, which in the Bay Area, which was huge. And you could see here through the course of it how the COVID crisis hit us in this timeline. By March 31st, we had $181 million in canceled convention business for San Francisco. We started seeing more task force being put together, both at the local level in the city and at the state through Governor Newsom, to start talking about building the economy back and making sure we're doing everything so that we can get to the various stages of the crises. International routes at SFO, our airport, were cut by about 98% in the initial days. So obviously the crisis hit San Francisco really strongly. The good thing is though our proactive approach to it really kept the infection rates down very low in San Francisco. We never had the big outbreak that a lot of other major metropolitan areas in the country's had. The national average of infection is 5 times higher than it is in San Francisco. And you'll see it's one of the lowest of any metropolitan areas in the country. That's because the city decided to take very aggressive stands early on. Let's go to the next phase. We've looked at 3 phases of our recovery. The first phase is really the safety and health of the citizens and visitors to San Francisco. And that's the period, the initial part through March and April. We were really focused on flattening the curve and making sure that San Francisco did not suffer some of the great outbreaks that some of the other world cities had. The second phase was really started in April and continuing to now. And the whole goal here was to communicate and inspire people who are locked in their rooms in quarantine, locked in their homes, who want to get out, to inspire them so as they start thinking about what they're going to do once the quarantine is over, they will think about San Francisco and the Bay Area and Northern California as one of the things that one of the places that they can do, they can put on their must-do list as post-recovery. Phase 3, we haven't started yet, but we're close to getting started, and that's to launch the recovery plans and welcome back visitors to the area. And we're doing those plans of exactly what that will look like, because visitors traveling to our destinations, especially to cities, will have very different protocols in the future than they had right before COVID-19. Let's go to the next slide. What was really important for us was to really pull partnerships together with all of those other entities that are interested in economic development. So we worked really closely with the City and County of San Francisco, with the Office of Workforce and Economic Development, with the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce, and with the various industry associations such as the Golden Gate Restaurant Association, the Hotel Council, California Travel Association, and Visit California, to name a few. We made sure that we were very closely connected with the local communities, the city, the Department of Public Health, to kind of make sure that we are facilities were properly being quarantined, and also the right protocols were being established so that when we can reopen, we would be able to reopen safely. And there was a lot of outreach. I sit on the Chamber of Commerce board. The head of the chamber sits on my board. We are very closely working together to make sure that our strategy for recovery for San Francisco is consistent among all the different entities that promote San Francisco for a variety of different business means. So that was really important, that our messaging was the same and that we collaborated and worked together as much as possible to make sure that the recovery could be as seamless as possible in this terrible crisis. Let's go on to the next slide. So we have been involved in a number of local and statewide task forces to do this exact same thing. We have led a convention task force in the Bay Area to make sure that our convention center opens in an environment that is safe and welcoming. And we wanted to be the cleanest, safest convention center that people can think of when they want to go to it, so they know that their meetings could be safe. We worked with Cal Travel for their COVID task force. We put together a major venue task force of all of our sports things, from the 49ers to the Warriors, to the San Francisco Giants, to concert promoters, to figure out what a large event's going to be looking like. We put together a task force with the Hotel Council to talk about cleaning standards for hotels, Coalition for Clean San Francisco, and it went on and on. I sit on the Mayor's Economic Recovery Task Force. The whole concept of here is not having a bunch of different entities that are doing different things, but making sure that all of us in the economic development world, and ours, especially in our tourism niche, we're doing the same thing, that we weren't establishing a whole bunch of different programs and plans that weren't talking to each other. We wanted to make sure that we were consistent in our message. We were working with the government and the business community to make sure that we were able to do this collectively. Let's go to the next slide. The next phase was communicate and inspire. So we started to do an outreach to our customers, to our consumers about San Francisco, and to give them an idea of what's going on. We talked to our stakeholders about the latest COVID-19 issues that are going on, so people knew what was happening, knew what the steps that the city was taking. We communicated together with the Chamber of Commerce to all of our joint members, and many of the members are to both organizations. We wanted to really make sure that the messaging was consistent and accurate, and we were being honest. We started talking to our customers, and then we would do some different things. Let's go to the next slide. One of the ways that San Francisco wanted to really recognize the hospitality industry and the importance of it, it was turning the city purple. So we had all these landmarks, because purple is the color of hospitality, from City Hall to businesses to our attractions. And you could see a number of different things, to hotels that were all purple for 6 weeks on every Monday in April and May, just to talk about the importance of hospitality to San Francisco's economy. The next slide. Another thing that we did was Through My Window campaign. And we did this together with New York and Los Angeles. And the whole idea that people are being cooped up, they're in quarantine. Why don't you share what your view of the world looks like in quarantine, so people can get inspired to travel? And so this Through Your Window was people posting on social media what the views from their window look like, and to get people inspired about coming to San Francisco, seeing these neighborhoods that they may not necessarily see. Let's go to the next slide. And it had a lot of connection with people. It really showed that what people's views outside their homes and outside their windows, to start to inspire them to start thinking about what travel is going to look like and what they can do once the coast was clear. Let's go to the next plan. To go to the phase 3 now, where we're starting to get into today, which is the restart of the economy and getting travel and tourism back. We know this isn't going to be fast. It's going to take some time, but we really want to focus on it. So we wanted to make sure that all of our hotels, restaurants, attractions were open and following a protocol that visitors felt safe in, because it requires people to feel comfortable and safe when they travel to a destination. And that's going to be really important. So enforcing the right protocols and the cleaning of our buildings and inside where there was a service connection with people, to make sure that those protocols were done. We worked with all of our key partners for leveraging the messaging. So Brand USA, the International Airport, Visit California, and a lot of our regional partners in the Bay Area, from Sonoma and Napa to San Jose, Monterey, and Carmel, to make sure that we're communicating together in the same message. And then we established new metrics for success. We had to change how we establish those, because everything that we're going to do after the COVID crisis is going to look different than what it looked like going in. So we want to make sure that our metrics were changing to establish the reality of today. Let's go to the next slide. So the triggers to move forward was making sure that the Bay Area was open for businesses. and that the travel restrictions were lifted by countries and corporations, and that's going to be slow. It's going to be a slow process because a lot of companies are realizing that they don't necessarily need to have all their employees work in their offices anymore, but they can work remotely, and corporate travel may be a little bit slower to come back. But that leisure travel is really going to be the first group that's going to come back, and that's the area that we're focusing on first. Let's go to the next slide. The importance here is that our strategy is we're going to talk to our regional customers first, those in Northern California, those that know us and feel comfortable with San Francisco. As traveling starts to get back a little bit more, then we're going to go talk about to the rest of the people in California. We've got 40 million people here living in the States, but it's going to be a slow process. Then we'll talk regionally throughout the West and get those people to start traveling and talk about San Francisco to them. Then we'll go nationally, and ultimately, probably next year, we'll go back to build a market internationally. But the domestic tourism market is really going to be what's going to be the first part to recover, and that's going to be our focus in the beginning. Some takeaways that I want to just share with all of you is it's really important to be connected to your audiences throughout this time. Be honest, tell the truth about what's going on. And because once you exaggerate or once you don't tell the reality of the situation, then they don't believe you going forward. So it's really important that you establish that credibility and authenticity. It's also important to develop appropriate messages and assets. Tell stories that people are interested looking. Monitor social media channels, maybe not even your own, but others, and see what people are talking about. What are the buzzes that make people really want to inspire them to do something, to make a purchase or to travel, and then focus on those messages. Communication, factual and relevant outreach to key stakeholders is really important. Again, I can't stress this enough. You know, sometimes us in marketing like to paint a really rosy picture, but in a crisis like this, we have to be honest. We have to say what's really going on. The experience coming into our destinations are not the same today as they were 6 months ago, nor will they be in 6 months from now. So we have to be experienced for and honest about what people can experience. And the key here is collaborate. Identify partners, think outside of the box, not just your traditional partners in your own business segments, but also partners outside of that segment that can really be beneficial to making that mutual goal of bringing the economy back together. So I'm going to end on a little video here. It's just a little over a minute, but this is kind of the messaging that we tell about San Francisco. You know, we're not quite ready to come back yet. We're going to be slower. We were the first ones into shelter in place. We're going to be one of the last ones to come out because our first priority here is making sure our citizens and potential visitors are safe coming to San Francisco. We're very proud of what it did, but this kind of communicates the message. So go ahead and play it.
We missed the sight of the Golden Gate, the laughter as we round the curves of our streets. The distance grows between us, but the strength that binds us is indestructible. Staying away is a sacrifice we're all willing to make, to let them do their job, to ensure that hope sees another day. The city's energy, while invisible in the streets, is bursting at the seams in our homes. We've crumbled to the ground and built ourselves back up. As always, San Francisco stands together, united. We're the city that knows how. Our hearts are beating as one. While we long for a physical embrace with you, we can feel the embrace of the fall. We know San Francisco is still here, waiting to laugh with you, celebrate with you, share a meal with you, make you smile again. When the time is right, our streets will fill back up, and our views will astonish you. Our Golden Gates can't wait to welcome you back.
Thank you so much, Joe. So thank you for that. And I look forward to speaking with you in a little bit when we hit the Q&A section. We are going to now go over, so we started in San Francisco, we're making our way East Coast, and we are stopping in Michigan now. So I'm going to introduce Annie Rimmel. Annie Rimmel became the president and CEO of the Great Lakes Bay Regional Convention and Visitors Bureau of Bay County, Midland County, and Saginaw County in September 2009. She was named president and CEO of the Saginaw County Convention and Visitors Bureau in October 2003. Prior to this, Annie served as the president and CEO of the Frankenmuth Chamber of Commerce and Convention and Visitors Bureau since August 1986, and has served the Michigan travel and tourism industry for more than 30 years. Annie is a graduate of Delta College, Northwood University, and she received her Master's of Science from Rochester Institute of Technology and her PhD from Michigan State University from the School of Agriculture and Natural Resources in the area of park, recreation, and tourism resource studies. Annie and her husband, William, reside in Frankenmuth, and they are parents to 2 daughters. Annie, please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Danielle. The travel sector is moving forward towards reopening all our industries that comprise this sector of the economy. In our region, the travel sector employs 10% of the workforce, with visitor spending in excess of $550 million annually. The travel sector is your EDO sense of place and leisure activity sector. Travel sector industries comprise the facet of your community leveraged in your EDO efforts to attract talent and business to relocate to your jurisdiction. This presentation will share how EDOs, Chamber of Commerce organizations, and our CVB are working to reopen our destination in a safe and welcoming way, what expected modes of transportation will be leveraged initially by visitors, the order in which we expect our customer segments to return, and includes information for you to share with your CVB and tourism partners. Next slide, please. Destination promotion is one very important function of a CVB. But how does destination promotion support the efforts of an EDO? The diagram displayed here was developed by Adam Sachs of Oxford Economics and sums up the impacts of CVB promotions on the destinations. Destination promotion activities support understanding of the destination's distinct positioning and raise awareness of the destination. Most importantly, by increasing visits, destination promotion activities provide firsthand experience with a destination, resulting in familiarity with a destination that is critically important for economic development. These 3 components, building a brand, raising awareness, and increasing familiarity, make up the effect which has been labeled as raising the destination profile. These interrelated concepts have the collective impact of supporting economic development efforts to attract investments and build a skilled workforce. Next slide, please. As we begin to explore this topic, next slide, please. As we begin to explore this topic, I'd like to acknowledge each of your organizations. You all have your hands full, focusing on things like business retention, expansion and attraction, infrastructure development, ombudsman, quality of life research, site and buildings, and all the other unique things to each of your organizations. Your time is valuable and already stretched to the maximum. As you can see by this chart, within our region, we have given a great deal of thought to how we can turn to one another as a community organizations and find ways to alleviate this pressure. We have identified areas of collaboration while respecting one another's boundaries and found ways to save resources as well. And we were blessed to have done this prior to the crises. When the COVID-19 pandemic arrived, our CVB halted all paid advertising and focused on the following 4 pillars of action. In addition to the pandemic, our region experienced the loss of 2 large recreational lakes as a result of a 500-year flood, 2 dams breached, more than 15,000 people displaced from their homes, but fortunately we experienced no loss of life. Because the flood crisis happened within the pandemic crisis, focus and working together with our EDOs and chambers became even more critical. As you see, our 4 pillars of focus continue to be community first, organizational stability and sustainability, advocacy, and customer re-engagement. Next slide, please. On March 16, 2020, our Convention and Visitors Bureau pivoted from marketing and attraction to COVID-19 remediation strategies in support of our citizens. Healthcare workers who required shelter away from home, COVID-19 overflow patients, and our homeless population were all supported. We worked together with our EDOs and chambers of commerce to communicate and receive information through these relationships. The established trust between our organization allowed us to quickly and freely share resources and provide critical information in a confident manner. We learned from one another, then we moved to the flood crisis. So the need for relationships quickly expanded to include our Midland Emergency Operations Center, helping them facilitate lodging for flood victims. These traumatized victims additionally possessed high levels of anxiety due to the lack of social distancing and scarcity of PPE. We worked with FEMA officials, state of Michigan officials, elected officials, and the media, again, relying heavily on our existing EDO and chamber relationships during this extraordinary time of need. Next slide, please. So if you as the EDO don't currently have a working relationship with your CVB, I encourage you to use this time to establish a relationship. If you have a working relationship, I encourage you to contact your CVB to see if they are members of Destinations International, the CVB's version of IEDC, and US Travel. These two organizations provide incredible COVID-19 and crisis management resources. Both Destinations International and US Travel have created an extensive toolbox of recovery information for the travel sector and our various industry segments. If your CVB is not a member, of course, I encourage them to consider joining. However, if their existing budget will not allow this, I welcome them to visit our website for a variety of resources to support in their efforts to reopen safely. Our website is gogreat.com. Next slide, please. The CVB must have an organizational structure that is stable and sustainable in order to work effectively with your EDO and chamber. Many EDOs are 501c3 organizations and are therefore eligible for the PPP program under the CARES Act, whereas most CVBs are 501c6 organizations and not eligible for this program. As a result, CVBs may have had to lay staff members off. I am sadly having to report that our CVB lost 45% of our team. But as a result of this loss, collaborative efforts are even more valuable. However, some information you may want to share with your Convention and Visitors Bureau is that the U.S. Department of Commerce, Economic Development and Administration has received CARES Act funding, and CVBs are eligible to apply. Our CVB is applying for a grant to help create a recovery and new communication strategy, new customer experience strategy, and a new 3-year strategic plan. If your CVB has not yet looked into this funding source, you may want to work together. The information gained from our efforts will be valuable to extending the work of our EDOs, our MCOG, and other community organizations. Next slide, please. In the area of advocacy on a federal, state, or local level, our CVB turned to Mr. Jack Johnson of Destinations International when formulating our narrative. Jack has stated, words matter in politics, and those words need to be chosen carefully. If we are going to be successful, it starts with a values-based approach. That means talking to stakeholders in a manner that is simple and emotional and connects their values to your organization. It also means using words that people recognize, understand, and use themselves. Destinations International annually runs analysis of political discourse around related topics such as economic development, neighborhoods, public safety, education, and other public goods, and found that many of the same keywords were being repeated by political leaders when they talked positively about them. Since both the CVB and the EDO are economic development contributors, wouldn't this information be of value to us both? Well, the answer is obviously yes. This valuable insight could benefit both the CVB and EDO when working in the area of advocacy. Learning and sharing between organizations is a way to build relationships. The lexicon developed by Jack Johnson and Andreas Weissenborn of Destinations International is an excellent example of learning that can serve to enable both the CVB and the EDO to achieve greater levels of success. Within COVID-19, the flood at the forefront of our efforts, the CVB has been conducting Zoom roundtables with each federally elected official. The meeting's focus was to encourage our elected officials to amend the CARES Act language, enabling tourism sector businesses to take advantage of this program. Next slide, please. Unless CDBs and EDOs communicate, advocacy efforts can spill over. They may be of benefit or could cause harm to the other organization. This is why our CDB makes it a priority to possess a clear understanding of the priorities of the EDO and chambers. When our EDO and chamber leadership representatives are unable to participate in events like these roundtables, the CDB possesses the ability to discuss their existing needs, especially when they overlap with those of the travel sector. It also ensures that we don't unintentionally cause harm. The key is to communicate and collaborate. And with COVID-19, we did have that opportunity to have our EDOs and our chamber leaders along with us for all the roundtables. And then finally, when should your Convention and Visitors Bureau re-engage? For our CDB, it will be when our residents feel ready to welcome visitors to return. From March 16th until now, we have worked to provide services exclusively to our citizens. A few examples include establishment of a special hotel inventory available with special rates for our healthcare and emergency service workers. We shared information regarding business hours and of operation and where people could go for food pickup and delivery. This was especially important to our hotels who remained open during Michigan's stay-at-home order. The CDB worked in collaboration with our EDOs, Chambers of Commerce, and the entire business community to collect and donate PPE and share valuable information. The CDB purposefully magnified and extended the reach of the information being distributed by our EDOs and Chamber of Commerce organizations, and they reciprocated. We shared virtual tours and digital learning materials to benefit our region's children being educated at home by their parents. We shared arts and entertainment learning labs and experienced art at home sessions. And we promoted gift card purchases as well as facilitated business highlighted by GoPro tours to teach residents all there is to see and do within Michigan's Great Lakes Bay region. Next slide, please. When the time is right was a soft message communicated to our region's future visitors. This message was shared deploying guerrilla marketing efforts. These are marketing approaches that have very little associated cost, but can be extremely effective. In Michigan, the time is finally right, but not for a full-blown marketing blitz, but as part of our community-focused approach to destination stewardship. We will begin by focusing our message in support of our number one customer, the resident. This decision is based upon information we received from Longwoods International, an industry expert on data. Longwoods launched a perception study of U.S. residents and travel customers. This data is designed to guide the CDB and let us know when the time is right to welcome back visitors based upon residential opinion and the willingness of people to travel. The study shares data regarding when the visitors will travel, how they will travel, and what they will want to experience during upcoming travel experiences. What we learned so far is that more than half of our residents are ready to welcome visitors back to our communities, especially friends and family members. We've learned that most visitors will arrive by car from within a 200-mile radius of our destination and will desire to participate in outdoor experiences. We will focus our marketing message in this geographic area, highlighting our unique outdoor experiences as our message. Individual and small family groups will be the first market segment to recover, followed by sports and group travel. The meetings, conferences, and conventions segment will be the last to recover. We are estimating that that will take up to 18 months for our entire travel sector to gain 2019 levels. To close, I want to share that a CDB is a community asset responsible for programs promoting a community as an attractive travel destination and enhancing its public image as a dynamic place to live, work, worship, and play. Through destination stewardship and brand importance, CDBs strengthen a community's economic position and vitality, which provides an opportunity for all EDOs and all the people in the destination to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie, and thank you so much for really weaving in the similarities and the overlaps, and also just the collaboration between DMOs and EDOs. And I'm sure we'll have a number of questions from the EDO community on that at the end. So thank you. So now we're heading down to Miami. So we're continuing our trek east, and I'm going to introduce Bill Talbert. For more than 3 decades, William D. Talbert III, CDME, who I'll refer to as Bill moving forward, has distinguished himself as a highly respected visitor industry and community leader, both as a president and CEO of the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau for 20 years and chief operating officer for the previous 9. Among his major accomplishments, Bill assisted with the passage of the United States Travel Promotion Act and the Miami-Dade County Food and Beverage Tax to fund the GMCBB's annual advertising program. He led efforts to win and subsequently host 5 Super Bowls, including Super Bowl 54 in 2020, the NFL's Centennial Celebration, and mounted 4 successful bids to host U.S. Travel Association's International Powwow. To ensure the future successes of Miami's meetings business, Bill passionately championed efforts to secure a $620 million renovation for the newly reimagined Miami Beach Convention Center and the subsequent approval by voters to establish a headquarters hotel at the MBCC. In 1993, he helped establish the Black Hospitality Initiative of Greater Miami to increase African American participation in the visitor industry through hospitality scholarships, internships, and mentoring. Under his leadership in 2007, the organization received accreditation from Destinations International. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent industry response, Bill has also served on a number of national and municipal boards working to ensure the destination's health and economic recovery, including U.S. Commerce's Travel and Tourism Advisory Board on restoring consumer confidence, Miami-Dade County's Economic Recovery Task Force, City of Miami Beach Advisory Panel, City of Miami Recovery Group, and the Atlantic Intercoastal Waterfront Recreation Access Steering Committee. He's also a board member of multiple Miami-based business and nonprofit organizations. And Bill, I hope you sleep a few hours at night as well, because you are doing a lot. Thank you. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Daniela. I agree with Joe. These resumes are a bit long. I'm not going to add a whole lot that you haven't heard. Joe D'Alessandro apparently has copied all of what Miami's doing. So we're going to have to get the lawyers. We're going to have to get the lawyers after him again. So, but we're on the East Coast. He's on the West Coast. So we'll forgive him. And congratulations, Joe, on your Destination International Single Leadership Award. Long overdue. So congratulations.
Thank you, Bill.
We had, just like the industry, we had record tourism. The numbers were off the charts: occupancy, average daily rates, building new hotels, new attractions, $2 billion investment in our port, cruise capital of the world, the only airport in the country served by more than 100 airlines. But you know what? That was then, this is now. And 91 days ago, that famous March 16th, we came up with, it's called Safer at Home, not Shelter at Home. So I'm here in Coconut Grove, and 91 days ago, we are safer at home. So next slide. Next slide. I don't have the clicker. There you go. There you go. So the beach, you saw the beach before that. The beach opened last week. Thank you. And the hotels opened June 1st. But our recovery efforts started right away. You know, it was last October. We were so darn proud. We launched a new strategic plan that involved 15 town hall meetings. Our community is almost 3 million permanent residents. It's larger than 15 states. It's huge. And so we had our new strategic plan. Next slide. There it is, and it actually now is the framework for our recovery. Next slide. Next slide. Similar to Joe. Here's Joe Stalin and Annie too. But educate, mitigate, and stimulate. Educate and engage our stakeholders. mitigate, adjust our sales and PR activities to be sensitive with the changing business climate, and then finally stimulate, deploy a comprehensive business recovery plan to quickly recover and gain market share. Next slide. You know, it was back March 9th, before the March 16th. Boy, this virus was coming, and we had a meeting with our mayor on Miami Beach. That was March 9th, was a Monday. We had our airport folks, our hotel folks, our government folks, the health folks, and we thought we were dealing with a good thing. But then a few days later, the bottom fell out. And so we kind of start all over. You know, everybody's talked about partnerships, right? Next slide. Here's a list, some just of our partners. And I think all of us, Joe will agree, and Annie, all of us, if you don't have partners, you have nothing. None of us, you know, in the old days, people, we'll do it alone. No, you better have partners. If not, you're going to perish. So we have 1,100 members. We call them partners of the Bureau, but we partner with, we have Joe, 35 cities in our county, 35 cities, and we work with all of them. So let's get right to our program. The next slide. This is the next slide. This is really the framework for what at the end we'll launch as a Miami Shines program. But there's your educate, mitigate, and stimulate again. And here are a variety of programs. And these were all on our website. Shortcut, you can go gmcbb.com, miamiandbeaches.com, or you can Google those. And so it's quite robust. But just like all of you see the Bureau website, that virus click-through is right up on the top. We've morphed that over to Miami Shines, but as we all know, information was changing by the day, if not by the hour. We and Mike Finney, probably on this call, he is the EDO in Miami-Dade County, the Beacon Council. We were fortunate to steal Mike Finney from Michigan, and he's been here for a while, and he's not going anywhere. And that partnership between the Beacon Council and the GMCBB is better than it has ever been, and we'll show you how that has evolved. So we've had Miami Salutes partnership that for our first responders, Miami Eats, and we'll say a little bit about that in a second. Obviously, all of the COVID stuff, it was mind-boggling, all this stuff. And then Meals for Heroes, that was another program. And then we all had the virtual tours, Virtual Miami, part of GMCBB, and that got to be very robust. And that while people couldn't visit physically, they got the virtual. We have 8 webcams. So if you want to see, and we got these long time ago to show, don't believe us what's happening. Look at these webcams, and so they're all over our community. So, and then some talked about the essential lodgers, and we had a whole program of lodgers, and the law had basically all the hotels were closed, locked up and closed. But there were exceptions, and we at the Bureau, along with the Beacon Council, were critical in having some exceptions to the rules, and so that was a good thing. So we've been at this crisis management for a long time. We all have been. We've had 4 straight years of hurricanes. We had 9/11, an air disaster. We had the Gulf oil spill. Remember had Zika? We want that mosquito back. So shortly, 6 days after it was on March 22nd, our Bureau marketing team, creative team, came up with a new program that did not exist before, called Miami Eats. I think most of us had, while the restaurants were closed, they were allowed to stay open if they had takeout or delivery. So we grabbed on to those restaurants, And, bureaus have pay to play. And so we waived all of our rules. So all you had to do to participate in the Miami Eats program was show that you had takeout and delivery, and the rest, no fee. We also asked the customer to order direct, go direct. Don't go through those services. So on March 22nd, a program was born that did not exist, did not have a name, did not have any partners. But on day one, 320 of our restaurants came into the Miami Eats program. And I can tell you right today, we have over 1,200 restaurants all over our community under the Miami Eats umbrella. And there are clearly, and we've gotten this from restaurants, there are restaurants that are open today because of the Miami Eats program. There are people working today. This is a little thing, but if you do the little things, the big things will follow. So this is to treat yourself, treat your friends, and treat your heroes. So it was a partnership that is part now of our Miami Shines program. Next slide. Oh, we're going to have the video. Here we go. 30 seconds. This was free to us from the Miami Beach Chamber, as a matter of fact, and Atlantic Broadband Cable.
Every time the phone rings
at our restaurant, it brings us hope.
Because every time you call us directly
For takeout or delivery,
our kitchens come to life.
we season your food
with love and gratitude
so you can enjoy it at home.
By yourself or with your closest ones.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for calling us.
Thank you for ordering out.
Merci.
Gracias, Miami.
Miami Eats. Order out, help out. Dial your restaurants now.
So this, once again, this program, this video that you just saw was put together in-house by our team in 18 hours because we had this free spot on local television. But I think, in these tough times, you have to be nimble. You talk about thinking out of the box, but you do what you got to do. Remember, the focus is have people back to work. Next slide. And we're all into social media. I'm an amateur. I think Joe D'Alessandro knows that I'm an amateur at social media, but we've got a robust, that's how word gets out in real time. That's the difference in us before. You have cell phones, you have social media, and we have full-time staff that does that. There's Miami Eats, our other initiatives, Miami Moments, and then Instagram. So we're into all of those platforms. Next slide. As Joe said, when he's copying our stuff again, was our PreRecovery for the meeting planner. While our communities, you focus in on the vacationer, we got the beaches and you got the Golden Gate Bridge and, all of that glitz and glitter. But there are convention centers. There are meeting spaces in hotels. So that meetings business is important to all of us. It's important to our community. It's important to our hotel partners. So we had the PreRecovery program on reaching out to our customers in a variety of ways, Zooms. I don't know how when we're about zoomed out by the number of Zooms. I know I've been on probably like Joe, multiple Zooms at one time, but our convention sales meeting staff reached out in a nice way to say, how you doing? How can we help? While we were safer at home, there were a few folks still at the office, but this whole thing about working at home, in many ways, you can get more work done safer at home. And so, but that's a little plug for that. But, with our partners, but focused in on the importance of getting meetings back. And by the way, meetings are going to come back. They say, well, no, there's not going to be. And a little plug, you talk about social distancing, right? Social distancing. And if there were ever a place to do social distancing, It's in a 1 million square foot convention center. 1 million. You talk about a place to spread out. So I think that is a strength in terms of going forward, is a big wide open spaces. Next slide. There's more of our meeting planner efforts. All of our clients there. You know, we take the East Coast clients, and then Joe gets the West Coast clients, and then Annie gets the middle part. We've also, the next slide, we've created, just like we did under Zika, next slide, a destination pledge. So across the board, whether it's every touch, we all heard these things, the touch points. Well, the touch point for a destination is when you come into the airport or you drive in, the transportation to your hotel or the convention center, the restaurants and retail, the convention center. One overall statement that we're working on. So one pledge that you're going to be clean and safe above standards. And our partners on Miami Beach have come up with a thing called MB Standard, Miami Beach Standard, where they're going to be, it's kind of like a good housekeeping seal of approval, which you have to go well above the minimum standards. And so we're pleased with that partnership. Next slide. And we all know our industry is largely small businesses. So we have our Multicultural Department that helped to get restaurants for the Miami Eats, and they are involved in capacity building, and have Zooms. And so that department, which is 5 years old, has really been helping in a meaningful way on the recovery, multicultural tourism and development. So next slide. So what did we do? That was then. This is now. So here is Miami Shines. Next slide. So, and you saw that when we first started. Now this is the EDO DMO working together with Mike Finney and the Miami-Dade County Beacon Council. When the Bureau created Miami Shines, we showed it to our partners, and Mike Finney on the spot signed on. He says, I want to be part of that. Remember, this is an umbrella, Miami Shines, for lots of activities. Business development, obviously, for tourism, for meetings and conventions. And this is actually a blurb from Mike Finney's weekly newsletter, like we have ours, that he took the Miami Shines and took Black businesses in the neighborhoods, part of our multicultural, and featured them. So really, really connecting all the dots. So Mike Finney is on this call, and bravo. Next slide. So next slide. So here's our recovery framework, the Miami Shines, a toolkit. Now, what does it cost for a company to engage in this toolkit? Nothing. This is free. This is a contribution from your Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau to our local economy, to local businesses. So we're proud of this. Companies now have this, and it's the umbrella. We had What Makes You Happy after 9/11. We were in the marketplace quickly, and so this is being well received, and it's an umbrella for lots of things. Next slide. We're getting close to the end. Now, just like Joe D'Alessandro, this is it's the same. I guess you fish where the fish are, but what is our initial? It's the drive market. The drive market. You know, we had in the past the vast majority of our customers, leisure, tourism, conventions, cruising, came by air, came by Miami International Airport. So now we're going to get into the drive business in the region. So we are in that phase now. The Tri-County, which is Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. And then the rest of the drive market is Florida and Georgia. Then the Southeast drive markets. Maybe we'll drive to Michigan. I don't know if we'll get to San Francisco. And then the next phase is and the airlines are starting to add service. I mean, they were so far down. And so There is air service. Our number one airline is American Airlines, the largest airline in the world, and it has been 73% of our business at Miami National Airport. But we'll get into the U.S. and Canada feeder markets, and then lo and behold, yes, we'll get back into some of those international markets that were so important to us. Remember, they stay longer and they spend more. So, and here's more. Once again, the Miami Shines umbrella for meeting planners. In fact, we have some meeting planners in town as we speak. Basically a new convention center on Miami Beach and an approved headquarter hotel. You heard that. So it's the next slide. I think we all talk about how to amplify these messages. So our Miami Shines, it's in English, Spanish, and Creole for our Haitian population. And so we have, you can see there, I think we're all doing this, and it's particularly for our diverse communities, for our entire community. You know, we have big spaces, you know, people, and, you know, one of the things we do know is that people are going to travel. We know there's pent up demand for travel. How do we know? Because we want to get out. I'm tired of 91 days here. So it's, and we do know from our research, there's pent up drive demand from Florida, from the Southeast for Miami and Miami Beach. But at the end of the day, it's about our customers and our businesses. You know, these businesses are hurting. We're all hurting. You know, and we're going to get better each day. You know, if any of us could do three things: wash our hands, we're getting pretty good at that; facial covering, and then social distancing. We would be getting out of this quicker than we are. But you see this, people are not, you know, we go out. People apparently think these rules are for everybody else. And that's what's going to slide us back. But it's a partnership, but the partnership between the EDO, the Beacon Council, Mike Finney, and the GMCVB, Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, C6, has never been stronger. In fact, the county mayor has asked Mr. Finney and I to be involved in the leadership in the economic recovery of our entire community. So with that, I'll get quiet. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much,
Miami
Bill.
Shines.
Yeah. Miami Shines, yes, thank you. We have a couple of questions that came in, and I also encourage attendees to, we still have, you know, some time to pop in some questions so we can make sure to ask them. I want to ask, I have a few questions here that I flagged, but for all three of the panelists. We all talked about how rapidly things have changed over the last 12 weeks. And, you know, sometimes on a daily basis, things were changing. And as of today, what is one thing that's keeping you guys awake at night as you think, you know, what the future of tourism and travel can look like, or you're looking at your local businesses, your local hotels? What are you tossing and turning thinking about this week?
I can tell you the answer
Bill?
to that. No, let me just say it's crystal
what's
clear.
The answer, Bill?
What keeps us up at night is not knowing when there's going to be a vaccine. There will be a vaccine. So what keeps me up at night is not being able to know when that vaccine is going to be there, because that really affects how we run our companies.
Mm-hmm.
This is Joe. I'll just add to that, and I agree with what Bill said, but I think what he said earlier too is another thing that we're worried about. And you know, we closed San Francisco down so early on in the process, and we've kept the infection rate really low. We are worried that people are not following the protocol, like wearing your mask, doing the very simplest things that can reinfect the city, as a visitor can come in from outside the area and bring the disease with them. So we're worried about that too. And I think as we start to open up, we're going to be monitoring that very closely. It's really important, as Bill said earlier, that everybody follows the protocols. The masks are really important if we want to get the curve to stay down and open up our economy. It's really important that we all practice that.
Thank you. Annie, is something else keeping you up at night?
Well, no, it would be right along that same line. With our double crisis, we were very concerned about bringing the residents who were displaced from their homes together in the emergency shelters and not having enough equipment to protect them and to allow that social distancing to occur. So I think that what I'm optimistic about is that the equipment is now becoming more readily available. And I think that that will help us. And I'm very impressed with the travel sector because they've taken and assessed those touch points that are so important, and they put remediation strategies in place already. And how quickly they did that is incredibly transformative, and I think will make a big difference for our industry sector to recover.
Another question that was, it's prompted because of a common thing that each of you spoke about, but community engagement, particularly with local businesses, with a key theme that, each of you touched upon, particularly as sort of that phase one first steps. What role do you envision that community or local business engagement playing, post-recovery, as priorities shift, as more inbound tourists will come to each of your destinations? Will this continue to be a core activity that you take on, or is this something that's prime for your EDO partners to come in and help with?
I can address that. I'll tell you, I wouldn't move forward at all without my EDO and other community organizations partners. It wouldn't be fiscally responsible, nor in the best interest of in my case, the region, in other cases, community. If you're not collaborating and sharing information, you're wasting resources and you're not driving the community or region forward in the most desirable way. So I don't look at this as a one and done relationship. This is going to be going on and getting bigger, and I see many more areas that we can overlap and collaborate in.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. This is not going away. It's only going to build, and to the extent it was already there, it just gets even stronger. But you know what? A lot of this is based on the individuals. And so if you have a CEO that's open to that, it'll happen. If you don't, and I think you see the new more open-minded CEOs of DMOs and EDOs understand that maybe the rules of the past are the past, and that these partnerships are good, not anything to look at with suspicion. How about that?
Joe, do you have any? That's great. Joe, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I agree with that. I think that, sometimes we're all in our little silos, and especially when things are good, we don't think we need each other as much. But all a crisis like this does is demonstrate how important collaboration and cooperation is across these silos. And I think we have an opportunity now during this pandemic, and when everything is in an upheaval, to really establish those relationships where we can work together across different industry sectors and make those relationships permanent. I think we're all going to be stronger. Our recovery will be stronger, and we'll be able to go through more of these challenges in the future.
Great. So following on that, we have a question from the audience, an audience member, wanting to know, what are the best, since collaboration will be key moving forward, is there advice for your EDO partners on best ways for them to stay engaged, as well as chambers to stay engaged throughout the year, to continue collaborating with you? And if you guys, and I think you guys already addressed some successful examples, but they were wanting to know just sort of what's the best way EDOs can continue to maintain relationships with DMOs?
Interlocking boards for the start. That wasn't typical in the past. That was a no-no. But we have multiple chambers and EDOs. But I serve on the EDO's board, and the EDO serves on the CBB board. So that's a start, and that's where you go from.
I agree with Bill. The current chamber of Commerce of San Francisco's board chair was our board chair 2 years ago. I also think that we need to get the staffs collaborating. So if there's a committee that's going to deal with public policy issues, or there's a committee that's going to deal with marketing issues, let's make sure that the staff from both organizations are on it. The more collaboration, the more cooperation, the better the message will be consistent and the longer reach that message will have.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question. Annie, I will throw this over to you first. COVID-19 is a challenging opportunity to reset strategy. What trends in sustainability are you diving into? So for example, inclusive growth, addressing rising sea levels, addressing natural disasters, climate change. Are you working into your organization's strategy or of those coalitions that you are participating in?
Yes, so as we discussed, one of our situations was both COVID-19 and a 500-year flood. So we're going to be faced with working to try and shore up that infrastructure of the 2 dams that were lost. That's not something, and return the recreational lakes that were lost in that process. And then these waterfront multi-million-dollar homes that we're looking over the waterfront. These are projects that I, as the Convention and Visitors Bureau, can't take on myself. And I need to be in that strong partnership with the Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Organization, as well as our Regional Economic Development Organization, our MCOG, that's locally. By us collaborating, the likelihood of us getting federal dollars to help with these remediation strategies will be much greater. Another project that is in our future is river deepening, so that we can compete with Miami someday on being the cruise ship capital of the world. But right now, our rivers aren't deep enough. So anyway, those are necessary and bigger picture kind of projects that no single organization should have to take on themselves. And by working together, it's an easier lift.
We've also engaged over the last few weeks. We have our top of our website, about the virus, but the last few weeks we've added a statement on racial injustice, and we're heading right into that as a community issue. So if you look at our website, you can see a statement, but what we have done and what we are going to do, the GMCVB, in terms of important community projects that will deal with that. So we're expanding our view.
This is Joe, and I just want to add on to what Bill just said. I agree with that totally. This is another disaster in the making. If we as destination marketing organizations and EDO don't get involved in racial injustice issues, I think our local economies will suffer as a result. So I think it is an opportunity for us to get involved.
I would like to add on to that as well. I was extraordinarily proud of the communities. Our 3 counties, as well as the county below us in Flint and Genesee County. We've been working on race relations and efforts to be more inclusive for about 30 years now. And I am just so proud that our community united and said, in a very loud voice, we are working together as one. And we didn't have a single incident of any kind of violence or damage. We just all worked together and we were out there as one unit.
And I think something that, each of you pointed out, and even in that question, is just the fact that, COVID-19 did not exist in an isolated bubble. It felt like an isolated bubble for, a few weeks, but really there were a lot of other things going on. And so as you're looking forward, and as, each of you are also dealing with other types of crises, natural disasters and racial injustice, just to name a few, in the midst of COVID-19 recovery, how has what you've done and how you've led the organizations over the last few months, how has that shaped the way you'll respond and react to future crises? So whether that's a second wave of COVID-19 or one of many other crises that we will inevitably have in the future, has anything changed as a result of this experience?
Well, this is Joe.
We've all been dealing. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Go, Joe.
The flag of the city of San Francisco has a phoenix rising out of the ashes on it because of are dealing with disasters in the past. And one of the reasons that our organization has been able to weather this crisis is that we've been set up a very healthy reserve, a fiscal reserve, because of the idea that we're going to have some crises at some point. We develop crisis communication plans about how to do it, and you think you may never need that, and hopefully you may never do need those plans. But when you do need them, it's critical to have them in place. It's critical to be able to move forward with them. So I think as we all develop this and get through this process right now, we have to be mindful of that. Build reserves in our budgets to make sure that we can get through these tough times. Build your crisis communication plans. Know exactly how you're going to operate with your teams and your staffs and your offices. Just be as prepared as possible, because something's going to come at some time. We didn't predict one as big as this, but if we didn't have a plan in place, we didn't have some reserves in place, we would have been hit much harder in this place. The more advanced plan you can do during a time like this, the better it is for when times are great.
And Joe's exactly right. And experience helps a lot. And it's no one of these is alike. You know, where did Zika come from? I mean, where did this thing come from? We've got sea level rise. None of these disasters are the same. Gulf oil spill, where did that come from? So experience, and we have largely the same team. We have some new folks too that we've been down this road before. We know how to do it. We still make mistakes, but and I agree with Joe. The reserves, they're tough. They're tough to get, and they're great to keep. So, and we have the same thing. I'm sorry they're recording this. So.
And this is Annie. We were blessed to have reserves, which we've been able to maintain a very solid direction and are confident in the future. But one of the things I want to point out is that the travel sector is really supportive of one another as well. If there's a situation in one community and you have experience like Bill was just talking about, the other communities DMO steps up and gives very freely and shares information. So that's a real nice thing about the industry sector, is that we help one another. Even though we're kind of competitors, we're still there for one another as industry professionals.
Yes, we're all engaging in competition right now. We're collaboration, cooperative, you know, with our competitive set. Each of you brought up budgets and having reserves, and an attendee, you know, had a question about budgets. You know, if you're comfortable sharing what your annual budgets are, or if you can just share what the percentage change is pre-COVID versus what you're projecting for next fiscal year.
Yeah, this is Joe. Our budget last year was about $46 million, and this year it's going to be about $9.5 million, all COVID related.
I can't remember.
Well, I'm the smallest one.
It's less. No, it's less. It's less than it was. Now, you know, the U.S. government has been sending money down to the states and to locals. So there's money that's in local government's coffers right now, and so there's you know, that's probably one time. But you know, you talked about the EDA. We're all looking at those EDA grants, but it's I mean, there's such uncertainty because the governments are struggling. They're going to have problems, and you know, their sources of revenue. So it's everybody, and I think everybody. We have a saying of family first. Now we did on April 4th, early on, remember March 16th, April 4th, we cut 10% of our staff. We cut the CEO's salary by 25%, and it tiered down 17. Everybody was 5%, no sales incentives and no pension contribution. That's one of the ways, at least now, we're financing this recovery program called Miami Shines.
Well, thank you for that. We just have 2 more questions. One, the first one actually, Joe, is for you. So business events, as you mentioned, is a pillar of economic development for San Francisco and the Bay Area. It's also one of the it's one of the areas that overlap with what EDOs do, as they focus on sectors that their destinations are strong in. And so the question is, how are business events going to look different in the future? And also, do you think there's opportunity for new sectors or clusters to emerge in destinations if you remove this, you include actually work from home, a lot more working from home?
Yes, absolutely. Things are going to be looking differently. We had conventions last year, business events that had 80,000, 100,000 delegates in it. We're not going to see that this year. A lot of the groups that we will continue to see meeting in the fall and next year are going to change dramatically. There's going to be a much larger virtual presence, and that will be a shift. We're going to look at how we can socially distance and do the proper protocols in the convention center and also in various hotels and other meeting room facilities. We're coming up with those plans with the Department of Public Health right now for when we open. The key, though, is that whenever business meetings suffered during the financial recession of 2008 and 9 or after 9/11, they always come back because companies understand that in-person meetings are critical for the forward motion of their businesses. And so without those business meetings, businesses do suffer, and the ability for them to make a profit suffers. So they will come back. It's going to be a slower process, especially the large meetings, and they're going to be a combination of virtual and in-person. But ultimately, the in-person meeting will come back once the virus has a vaccine and it gets under control, because people realize that they have to meet in person.
Associations live off meetings. If they don't have annual meetings, the association goes away.
So meetings will be back. So we do have a final question as we're wrapping up our 90 minutes with the three of you. And it's a creative question, so thank you to the panelists who asked this, the attendee who asked this. So it's 2030, and Elon Musk has invented a new technology that will allow you to send yourself an email that you'll receive in 2019. I mean, we are talking Black Mirror kind of stuff, guys. What is the one piece of advice that you give yourself in, telling yourself to prepare for 2020?
I know what it is.
This is Joe.
Oh.
Go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead.
Annie, why don't you go first? I'm going to kick it up to
you. Annie, you do it.
I didn't hear. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. Will you please repeat it?
Sure. So Elon Musk invented new technology. You get to send yourself an email 2030. You're going to send yourself an email that you will receive in 2019. Remember, this is Black Mirror we're thinking here. What's that one piece of advice that you want to give yourself in 2019 as you are like, hey, 2020 is coming. Here's what you need to know.
Okay. I would say first, don't be in Belize on May 15th wondering if you can fly into the Miami airport, because that's where I was. But seriously, I would have told my state of Michigan to please take the situation with our two dams into play and remediate and strengthen those pieces of infrastructure. And I believe that I would have had an established relationship with FEMA, the Red Cross, all of the emergency services that we had to deploy, and had to build that trust and that relationship with. I think I would have done all of that in advance and made sure we were more prepared than what we were.
Thank you. Bill, I'll turn it over to you.
I want to hear Joe first.
Bill wants
mine's
to make
simple.
sure he doesn't copy you.
Mine is simple. I would just advise myself to take a sabbatical in 2020.
Okay, mine is, if not too dissimilar, so my advice would be get a haircut.
Well, on that note, I want to thank the three of you for your time. I know there is a lot going on, today, currently, just this week. And, we're really grateful that you guys took out so much time to prepare and also talk to your EDO counterparts today, giving them tips on how they can partner with you, and also just shedding light on a lot of the initiatives that each of your organizations have pivoted towards over the last 12 weeks. So thank you so much. We will post this, and IEDC will come back to everybody after to let you know where it's posted. But thank you all, and thank you all to the attendees, and thank you for your great questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.